By the late 1950s, theatrical cartoons had become far less profitable than they once were. And in May 1963, after more than 30 years in operation, Warner Brothers closed its animation studio. David Hudson DePatie, the last and longest-serving executive in charge of the original Warner Brothers cartoon studio, still saw potential in the animation industry and formed a partnership with his good friend, colleague, and legendary Warner Brothers animator and director Freleng. Freleng was the senior director at Warner Brothers Cartoon Studio, having directed 266 cartoons in total, more cartoons than any other director in the studio, and winning 4 Academy Awards during his time there. And in addition, Freleng was responsible for introducing or developing several of the studio's biggest stars. A generous gesture from a Warner executive allowed DePatie and Freleng to lease the former Warner Cartoon Studio on California Street in Burbank, complete with newly purchased equipment and supplies for a low rent each year. And together they formed DePatie-Freleng Enterprises, also known as DePatie-Freleng Entertainment. DePatie and Freleng were joined by other out-of-work animators from Warner Brothers, including Freleng's layout designer and right-hand man Hawley Pratt, and prolific animation directors Robert McKinson and Jerry Shinoqui, whose unique walking style became the basis for the Pink Panther. Initially, DePatie-Freleng's principal work was producing for commercials and industrial films, until they were contacted by director Blake Edwards to design a panther character for Edwards' new film, The Pink Panther, produced by the Mirish Company and distributed by United Artists. In the storyline of the film, the Pink Panther is the name of a valuable pink diamond, named for a flaw that shows the figure of a springing panther. In the credits, the diamond is personified by an animated anthropomorphic panther with pink fur. A number of designs for the character were put forward, but Edwards was most pleased with Hawley Pratt's design and contracted DePatie-Freleng to produce the animated titles for the film. Freleng directed the animated sequences, and upon the film's release in 1963, the titles garnered a tremendous amount of attention, and was such a success with audiences and United Artists that the studio signed Freleng and his DePatie-Freleng Enterprises studio to a multi-year contract for a series of Pink Panther theatrical cartoon shorts. The first cartoon in this series was The Pink Fink, released on December 18, 1964, which featured the Pink Panther sabotaging the plans of a little white, mustachioed man by constantly trying to paint the little man's blue house pink. The cartoon is set to Henry Mancini's theme song from the 1963 film, and the Pink Panther theme would feature as the underscore in each of the Pink Panther theatrical shorts that would follow. The Pink Fink won the 1964 Academy Award for Animated Short Film, marking the only time in history where a studio won an Academy Award for its first ever production. The Pink Panther would go on to appear in 124 theatrical cartoons during this period. The Pink Panther character is an anthropomorphic, intelligent, androgynous everyman, normally involved in common, contemporary situations or more fantastic, anachronistic settings, either outsmarting an opponent or being outsmarted himself. The opponents would differ, but the most common would be the Little Man, who was given no official name, but was known by the animators at DePatie-Freleng as Big Nose, and was designed as a caricature of Freleng, with his moustache, short stature, and equally short temper, characteristics of Freleng which had previously served as an inspiration for Freleng's Warner Brothers cartoon character Yosemite Sam. Sometimes the cartoons would feature a narrator, often speaking to the panther directly, but the majority of the cartoons would feature no dialogue at all. The Pink Panther generally remained silent but spoke in 2 different cartoons, speaking one line in Sync Pink,
"Why can't man be more like animals?"
and spoke throughout the cartoon in Pink Ice.
By any chance, have you seen any gophers with diamonds in? They just could be trying to hide something.
Pink's voice was provided by veteran voice actor Rich Little, modeling it on that of David Niven, who had portrayed Inspector Clouseau's jewel thief nemesis in the original live-action film. These shorts are considered by many to be the last of the golden age of American animation, and Pink Panther the last great Hollywood cartoon character. Some of the top animation directors of the time worked together with legendary story writer John W. Dunn to produce theatrical cartoons with a very distinctive style. Produced after theatrical cartooning's peak of the 1940s and 50s, they were constrained to the limited animation techniques applied to Saturday morning cartoons of the 1960s and after. And within these limitations, the Pink Panther made creative use of absurd and surreal themes and visual puns, and an almost completely wordless pantomime style, played in front of rich and modernist background art and set to the ubiquitous Pink Panther theme and its variations by Henry Mancini. The theatrical Pink Panther cartoons are reminiscent of the classic silent movies of Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton, and later Mr. Bean. In addition to the lack of dialogue in each cartoon, cultural references were more muted and stylized, which resulted in a cartoon with longer-term, more cross-cultural appeal compared to other cartoons at the time, such as the Flintstones and Yogi Bear, shows which relied heavily on contemporary American pop culture. Furthermore, a key to the cartoon's success was director Theatrical's mastery of timing. Freleng himself regarded the Pink Panther as his finest achievement and the character he most identified with. In the fall of 1969, the Pink Panther theatrical cartoons made their way to television, shown on Saturday mornings on NBC in the form of The Pink Panther Show, an anthology series which usually featured 2 Pink Panther cartoons alongside The Inspector, another popular theatrical short series produced by DePatie-Freleng during the 1960s. The Pink Panther Show was produced by DePatie-Freleng Enterprises and Mirish Films, the studio responsible for producing the original Pink Panther film, and the series featured the animated Pink Panther character from the opening credits of the live-action films, as well as bumper sequences in between each cartoon, consisting of newly animated segments as well as recycled footage from existing cartoons. NBC added a laugh track to the original cartoons, and voice actor Marvin Miller was brought on as an off-camera narrator talking to the Pink Panther during bumper segments, featuring the Pink Panther and the Inspector together. The Pink Panther Show debuted on September 6, 1969, and ran in syndication until 1980, under various names and undergoing different format changes, and in 1978 switched from NBC to the ABC network. Pink Panther shorts that were produced after 1969 were made for both broadcast and theatrical release, typically appearing on television first and released to theaters by United Artists. Therapeutic Pink, released on April 1, 1977, was the final theatrical Pink Panther entry, and subsequent cartoons were produced for television under what was now known as the all-new Pink Panther Show in 1978. Initially premiering on television in late 1978, starting with Pink Pictures, the majority of these cartoons were later released in cinemas. Around this time, DePatie-Freleng produced a series of 3 primetime Pink Panther television specials for ABC, the first appearing in 1978 under the title A Pink Christmas. Directed by Bill Perez and written by Theatrical and John W. Dunn, A Pink Christmas was based partially on the O. Henry short story The Cop and the Anthem, and took place in a big city in the early 20th century and featured a homeless and hungry Pink Panther searching for food at Christmas time. This was followed by Olympics, released February 22, 1980, to coincide with the 1980 Winter Olympics, and was the last Pink Panther production to be produced by DePatie-Freleng Enterprises, as well as the last Pink Panther production involving creator Theatrical, who directed, but soon departed the company to return to the now reopened Warner Brothers Animation Studio. In 1981, Freleng and DePatie sold DFE Films to Marvel Comics, and on Valentine's Day that same year, the company released the third Pink Panther television special, an animated Valentine's Day special entitled Pink at First Sight, which would not only be David DePatie's first and only Pink Panther cartoon without Freleng, but would also be Marvel's first and ultimately only Pink Panther cartoon. In 1984, the Pink Panther was rebooted in the form of Pink Panther and Sons, produced by Hanna-Barbera Productions and David DePatie, now working for Hanna-Barbera, and which saw Freleng return as a creative producer. Pink Panther and Sons centered on the Pink Panther's two sons, preteen Pinky, his toddler brother Panky, and their friends in the Rainbow Panthers crew, all of whom are introduced in the opening segments. And each episode shows the Rainbow Panthers coming together in friendship as they take on a group of lions called the Howl Angels. While the Pink Panther himself was still silent, his two sons could talk. And in this series, the Pink Panther was really just a side character with very little interaction with his kids, who are very much the center of this show, and who have their adventures largely without their father. Pink Panther and Sons ran for a single season from September to December 1984, producing 13 episodes in total. In 1993, the Pink Panther was rebooted again in a show simply called The Pink Panther, also known as The New Pink Panther Show, and the first production of the short-lived MGM animation. The series centered on the Pink Panther alongside various characters from classic DePatie-Freleng theatrical shorts. And aside from a few lines spoken in two previous cartoons, this was the only series where both the Pink Panther and the Little Man speak. Pink was voiced by prolific voice actor Matt Fuhrer of Max Headroom fame, and who voiced Lloyd Christmas in Dumb and Dumber, the animated series. With each episode divided into two segments, the series saw the Pink Panther in various situations, ranging from modern day to the Stone Age and ancient Egypt. And although unpopular with some fans, Pink's ability to speak allowed him more interaction with other characters. The Inspector returned and often worked alongside the Pink Panther when he is depicted in law enforcement. The Ant and the Aardvark characters also returned, voiced by their original voice actor John Biner from the original shorts. The Dogfather, Pug and Louie from the Dogfather shorts were completely reinterpreted and included as recurring antagonists. The Muscle Man from the 1968 cartoon Come On In, The Water's Pink returns as a recurring character, as does the Witch from the 1969 cartoon Pinkerella. And the series also features new characters, including a mask-wearing tribal witch doctor named Voodoo Man, voiced by Dan Castellaneta. The last two episodes featured entirely new segments, only featuring the Texas Toads and Ant and the Aardvark, while the last Pink Panther segment, entitled Driving Mr. Pink, was co-directed by Cow and Chicken creator David Feiss, whose influence in the cartoon is clear to anyone familiar with Cow and Chicken. Driving Mr. Pink was in fact released in cinemas ahead of the 1995 film The Penguin and the Pebble, making it the final Pink Panther theatrical short to be reissued into a television short. The Pink Panther was nominated for a Daytime Emmy Award in 1994 for Outstanding Achievement in Music Direction and Composition, and the series spawned two computer games, The Pink Panther, Passport to Peril in 1995, and the sequel, The Pink Panther, Hocus Pocus Pink in 1996. And The Pink Panther was rebooted once again in 2010 in Pink Panther and Pals, a series reminiscent of the classic Pink Panther shorts from the 1960s, from art direction, silent acting, musical scoring, and storylines, featuring two 7-minute Pink Panther shorts and a 7-minute Ant and the Aardvark short in between, retaining the main characters in both shorts. The Pink Panther is once again silent and appears as a teenage version of himself. The little man is now officially named Big Nose, and is voiced by comedian Alex Nussbaum, while the Pink Panther's horse and Big Nose's dog were also introduced to the series. 78 segments were produced over 26 episodes in total, and Pink Panther and Pals debuted on Cartoon Network on August 12, 2010. The series ended with a standalone special entitled A Very Pink Christmas, the second Pink Panther Christmas special after the 1978 special A Pink Christmas. Over the years, the Pink Panther has been the mascot for various companies and products. In 1972, Post Cereals co-sponsored the Pink Panther show on Saturday mornings, and a year later, the cereal company introduced Pink Panther Flakes, pink frosted cornflakes, which also featured an animated commercial featuring the Pink Panther and the Little Man. Since 1979, the Pink Panther has been used as the official mascot for Owens Corning Corporation, a large U.S. manufacturer of fiberglass and building supplies. And Pink has appeared in multiple commercials for the company, a fact parodied in Family Guy. In the 2008 episode The Former Life of Brian, Pink dies as a result of inhaling too much fiberglass over the years, and later reappeared in the 2010 Halloween episode Halloween on Spooner Street. In addition, animated Pink Panther appearances have been seen in commercials advertising products from IBM, TDK VHS tapes, Safeco Insurance, even Andrew's liver salts in the UK. Pink has been used as an advertising mascot for Sweet and Low artificial sweetener, which is distributed in pink-colored packets, and the company featured him as a taxi driver in a television commercial for the product to promote the film The Pink Panther 2. Aside from his animated appearances, the Pink Panther has appeared in at least 6 video games. Countless comic book adaptations and various merchandise of his have been available ever since his debut. The Panther could be considered an honorary member of the Looney Tunes universe, as so many Warner Brothers animators and directors worked on the original theatrical shorts, and their gags and art styles and his particular form of pantomime have made Pink a timeless, universal classic. Let me know what you thought of the Pink Panther being given a family in the 1980s or being able to speak in the 1990s. And while we're at it, let us know in the comments which of the 124 theatrical shorts were your favorites. Whenever I think of the Pink Panther, the 2 shorts that I remember fondly from my childhood are The Pink Blueprints and Come On In, The Water's Pink. What about you? Thank you for watching all the way to the end. Please like this video if you learned something today or if it brought back any memories, and please share this video with anyone you think might learn something that they didn't know. I'll be back again soon, but in the meantime, please let me know if there are any other cartoon characters that you would like me to cover. And as always, stay tuned for more cartoon history.